Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Brought to you once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Today on Patriot Radio, the South Koreans try to arrest their president, or at least the impeached one. And the barriers are coming down literally as we are recording and broadcasting this right now. It's coming down. So we're going to do at the end of the break, we will do a quick update and see if anything has come in. But it is happening right now in South Korea. Also, a hostage deal, it looks like, in Israel. And not a lot of people are happy about it. And Pete Hegseth, well, destroys the Democrats on Capitol Hill. That's about the only way to say it, and looks headed for confirmation. And today our guest is John Guandolo, former FBI agent, an intelligence consultant, national security consultant, who's going to be talking about the recent terror attacks here in the United States and what we can expect to come through the inauguration and beyond. At Patriot Radio, we want to get you the most accurate information before everyone else so that you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead and the times that are already upon us. No fear. We're made for this. If you want to follow us on Telegram for real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news, please click on that QR code and follow us during especially this uncertain next 2 weeks. Also, for many of you, fear has crept in. For many of you, despair has crept in, and we want to pray with you. We want to journey with you so that you're not alone. You're not isolated, especially by social media. If you need prayer right now, we want to pray for you. Please click on that QR code, submit your prayer request, and we would love to walk with you in your journey with Jesus Christ. Also, you can follow us on Rumble at Patriot Radio US. And we are, of course, on Patriot TV, and we thank all of our Patriot TV viewers. Such an honor to be able to serve you with the best news and analysis here at Patriot Radio. And that brings us now to an encouraging word from the Word, Proverbs 29, verse 1 through 2. Now, if you read this, sometimes you can gloss over a very key point of it, but it says, a person often rebuked who becomes obstinate will suddenly be broken beyond remedy. This is a truism that really explains what has happened to the Democrat Party. Listen to this. This is the context. This is when the righteous increase, people rejoice. Now, some translations will put that as when the righteous rejoice, or the righteous are happy. When the righteous increase. In other words, when there is prosperity, increase in influence, increase in favor among the righteous, the people rejoice. But when the wicked person rules, people groan. And there was some interesting holdovers from the Biden administration that showed up today that got a pretty hilarious response. And we're going to view that right now on your daily intelligence briefing. That brings us first to the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
From Technocracy News, huge fail. 6 years after the UN declaration regarding nano-bio info cogno science exploded, and with it the lust for transhumanism was set on fire, the NBIC was conceived first by the National Science Foundation of the United States in a 2003 paper entitled Converging Technologies for Improving Human Performance. Very interesting how that really sounds like eugenics, but in transhumanist language. NBIC spread to every major university worldwide. Private research facilities sprung up everywhere with foundation grants. Thereafter, science through the UN's Human Genome Declaration in the trash. Whatever came of the Universal Declaration of the Human Genome and Human Rights? Well, the Declaration is still there for you to read, but don't ever think it will stop the self-appointed gods of neo-creation. That Declaration said a few key things. Article 4, the human genome in its natural state, shall not give rise to financial gains. In all cases, the prior free and informed consent of the person concerned shall be obtained, and every individual shall have the right, according to international and national law, to just reparation for any damage sustained as a direct and determining result of an intervention affecting his or her genome. Kind of makes you wonder if it was thrown out because COVID was coming. Also, Yuval Noah Harari has decided to tell us what they're going to do in the future. And he says that in a few years, there will be religions that are correct, according to him, of course, because AI might write a new holy book. Let's hear.
No previous technology in history could make decisions. Even an atom bomb actually empowered humans, because an atom bomb can destroy a city, it cannot decide which city to bomb. You always need a human to make the decision. AI is the first technology that can make decisions by itself, even about us. Increasingly, we apply to a bank to get a loan. It's an AI making the decisions about us. So it takes power away from us. The third thing about AI that everybody needs to know, it's the first technology ever that can create new ideas. The printing press,
that's
radio,
a lie.
Television,
And I'm going to tell you why that is a lie, because Ecclesiastes says there's no new idea under the sun. But that's interesting. This is a lie of the enemy, because the enemy will always try to get you to believe that the enemy can create something, that he can give you something, when only God above can do that, and only God creates new. It's interesting how he was talking about this. What they want to do then is use AI to tell you what correct religion is. Incredible. No, thank you. That brings us now to the China front. Chinese drone manufacturer DJI disables U.S. geofencing, allowing drones over prohibited areas, including the White House, Capitol. Oh, on the eve of the inauguration. How convenient a Chinese company would do that. Well, check this out. This is an example of gray zone warfare. This is an example of hybrid warfare. Why would they do that right now? And this is probably going to lead to a ban of DJI and other Chinese technology and drones here in the United States that hasn't already been banned. So, are the Chinese trying to foment something for the inauguration? Wow. Also, South Korean police have removed hundreds of protesters who gathered in front of the presidential palace in an effort to stop the police from arresting President Yoon. They now have a clear way, it looks like, and they're going to try to attempt to arrest him. Then an update. A second execution of the arrest warrant is underway. Reports indicate that over 6,500 pro-Yoon supporters and lawmakers gathered outside of the official presidential residence. Over 3,000 police officers have been deployed around the residence as a reported confrontation between Yoon's security and investigators is underway. They have now broken through the second line of presidential security, and they are now removing barriers. They're using bolt cutters and ladders to continue up the driveway there. This is going to be interesting to see what happens here in the next few minutes as we are here on this broadcast. We'll follow up at the end. Also, insider paper, 8 dead in suspected Marburg outbreak in Tanzania. Why is this on the China front? Well, because Guess which virus the Chinese have been messing around with gain of function. Also, on the Middle East front, a draft deal for a ceasefire in Gaza and hostage release has been agreed to in principle. If it all goes well, it will be finalized by Israel and Hamas this week, according to Arab, U.S., and Israeli officials. Well, right on the wake of that, one does not make a deal with the devil. Around 1,000 people are marching toward the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem saying, "Don't surrender to Hamas," and opposing a partial deal. The march is led by families of the hostages from Tikva Forum and bereaved families from the Heroism Forum. Very interesting. See how Netanyahu reacts to that. But a lot of this pressure has been brought about by Trump's envoy, who, by the way, said the Qataris were doing God's work. What possessed him? That's the right question to say that. I don't know, but that was way out of line and just ignorantly naive. Also today, Israeli aircraft struck 4, and it looks like maybe now 6 Palestinian terrorists who have been killed in this strike near Jenin. It looks like it was an Israeli drone, actually. So more terrorists being taken out on the eve of perhaps a hostage deal being signed. When we come back from the break, more from the Russia front. Very interesting developments there. And also, how did Pete Hegseth fare on Capitol Hill?
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs. Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for US-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
Vladimir Putin will remain in office until 2036.
Putin is being called bold.
What's your strategy to bring them back to the Stone Age?
Daring. You won't be able to look away.
How can his kingdom last?
Putin. Rated R. In select theaters January 10th.
From Horizon Events, that bold and daring new thriller, Putin, telling the inside story of Vladimir Putin's rise to power and imagines a near future. That rise could come to a very shocking and sudden end. Putin is rated R and in select theaters Friday. That brings us to the Russia front. The Queen of England was not told an aide was a Soviet spy for years, UK records show. That probably would have been something she wanted to know, but it just shows you how high Soviet intelligence infiltrated the Western world. Also, Trump will meet with Putin, quote, very quickly. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump told Newsmax Monday that he will meet with Russia's President Vladimir Putin very quickly after taking office next week. And the Russian president's response was that he appreciates the tone of President Trump toward Russia and Ukraine and that conflict right now. Also, the Russians have failed to understand the same things that U.S. flag rank, well, generals and admirals don't. Economic and organizational barriers to entry to operational strategic range drone air power is really deciding the war between Russia and Ukraine, specifically that cheap drones will always be cheaper than missiles that shoot them down. So whoever is building missiles is setting themselves up to lose. As Well, and this shouldn't be a surprise, but this is the Central and South American front. As one of his last acts in office, President Biden will lift the state sponsor of terrorism designation from the island of Cuba as early as Wednesday. Literally going out the door, weakening America as he goes. And that brings us to the national front. Fortress D.C., Trump's inauguration braces for the worst with fenced troops and drones. Heavy security in Washington, D.C., and thank God for that. Hope there's some anti-drone technology that is there as well. Also, public records reveal 388 non-citizens voted in the D.C. 2024 general election, according to Judicial Watch. I wonder how many voted nationally. Be a good question for the incoming administration. Also, O'Keefe Media Group releases evidence that Mark Zuckerberg lied about the Biden administration pressuring him to censor COVID-19 information and gave hundreds of thousands of dollars in free ads to pro-vax groups. Check that video out. O'Keefe doing a great job exposing the hypocrisy of some that are now suddenly friendly to free speech and patriots. The Department of Justice releases Jack Smith's report on January 6th and claims that Trump would have been convicted if not for a 2024 victory. This really echoes and confirms what General Flynn said, that if Trump hadn't have won, a lot of them would be arrested and in jail right now. Tom Homan breaking House passes bill permanently deporting all men from girls' sports in schools that receive federal funding. It's about time. 206 Democrats, well, they voted against it, but it passed nonetheless. Some good news there. Also, the U.S. Capitol has decided that the flags will fly at full staff for the Trump inauguration. And word is that with Trump readying to pardon J6 people, the IRS now has begun grinding them through audits. It's about time. The IRS is investigated itself and disbanded. And Pete Hegseth, some absolutely stunning quotes today. The first one, if you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they're throwing the book at you. If you're a general and you lose a war, you get a promotion. That was very, very well said. Also today, he said that instead of focusing on climate change and liquid gas-powered fighter jets or electric tanks, he will instead focus on the lethality and, well, the main mission of the Pentagon, defeating the enemy. What refreshing words this is. And lastly, I think everybody needs to see this one with Tim Sheehy, where probably the best exchange of the entire day with Pete Hegseth. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pete, I'm actually going to ask you questions because I want to hear your answer. How many genders are there? Tough one.
Senator, there are 2 genders.
I know that well. I'm a Sheehy, so I'm on board. What is the diameter of the rifle round fired out of an M4A1 rifle?
That's a 5.56.
How many push-ups can you do?
I did 5 sets of 47 this morning.
Impressive.
What do you think are most important strategic bases in the Pacific?
In the Pacific, Guam is pretty strategically significant.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30, Senator.
And what size round does the M9 Beretta standard issue sidearm for the military fire?
A 9mm, Senator.
What kind of batteries do you put in your night vision goggle?
Duracell.
So what this shows and what Sheehy's getting at here is Pete Hegseth knows the stuff on the ground. He has experience with it, and he will put war fighters first, and that's why Sheehy said he would support him. Following the hearing, the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee praised Hegseth's performance. I think it was a magnificent display of his knowledge. I feel very good about the hearing today. I don't think it could have gone any better. He will be confirmed. Some great news as we head into the inauguration. And that's the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. When we come back from the break, our guest, John Guandolo.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Hey folks, it's your buddy John Rich here and co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Let me ask you a question. Why would you trust your banking with people that hate you? Well, you shouldn't. We're building a freedom economy, and now we have a pro-America bank. It's called Old Glory Bank. Check it out at oldglorybank.com and open yourself an account today.
Old Glory Bank is a full-service, FDIC-insured online bank with business and consumer banking and customers in all 50 states. It takes just 8 minutes to open an account at oldglorybank.com.
And our guest today is John Guandolo, former FBI agent and also national security consultant. Somebody who's been way ahead of the curve, especially on jihadi terror attacks inside the United States. John, it's great to have you back on Patriot Radio.
Thank you. It's great to be back on with you, Matt.
So let's talk about this first terror attack in Texas. Jihadi, clearly, no question about it, even though at the very beginning they were trying to say it wasn't. Then they said he had help. Then they said he didn't. Let's get a little bit of background first. Is Texas really a center of gravity for jihadis in the United States?
So, short answer, yes. From my perspective, professionally, Houston, Texas is the worst city in America for the combined jihadi communist networks and threats. With that said, Houston, even on its own, just from the Islamic threat, the jihadi threat, has a massive network, massive. And so you're asking about this jihadi from Texas, from Houston, who went to New Orleans and attacked people on early on New Year's Day. And this, to me, this entire event, this entire tragedy was preventable. It was knowable because I've been teaching on this, and the organizations that we can talk about involved and the network is all knowable. And nobody at the local, state, and federal level has investigated it at all since 9/11, with a few exceptions, and those are what I call accidental investigations. But as a RICO or as a criminal conspiracy, however they ended up or would end up go after it, I have a number of recommendations. Nobody's touched the network. So we look at these as individual events. So if you are open to it, I would like to unpack the network right there, within a 3-minute walk of this guy's house, within 5 miles of where the attack took place in New Orleans. You got a dozen jihadi organizations untouched by a governor who I briefed when he was attorney general and made an intentional decision not to do anything about it. So this entire event, and in Texas, where I briefed Texas leadership 14 years ago with excruciating details about the network, and DPS and the governor and the attorney general have done nothing. And so this is going to continue to blow up in our faces, but the people that are going to bear the brunt are the people, the citizens, not the leaders. And so it kind of encompasses everything you and I have talked about before, especially the criminal negligence on the part of Republican leaders. Let's just start.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that Texas is now exporting terror, in the sense of there's jihadis that are based in Texas. But before we get to that, you brought up an important point, the red-green axis. Can you explain what that means to the average American? Because I think a lot of people miss that connection.
Yeah, when we talk about the red-green axis, or also the red-green-black axis, black being financiers and collaborators, red being the communist movement, green being the Islamic movement, and again, black being the financial support and those who are collaborating with them. And that includes external organizations and international organizations. So first, everything America is facing right now is the intentional outcome of a 60-plus year Islamic movement in the United States. And again, what I'm about to say applies to Europe, applies to broader North America, but we're just talking about the United States here. Everything we're experiencing is the intentional outcome of this 60-plus year Islamic movement, 100-plus year communist movement. These are identifiable movements, capital M, that have published doctrine and strategies. They have an identifiable network made up of thousands of organizations with lines of operation, hundreds of lines of operation, that they are daily working by using these thousands of organizations to advance. And on the good guy side, zero response except the occasional arrest when something explodes. That's the occasional arrest, but no actual counterintelligence, espionage investigations, no actual going after the network. So two things to say about it. So that's what we call the red-green or red-green-black axis, the communists and the jihadis working together. So a couple things. At the ground level around America, in your town, meaning any town, USA, they are operating seamlessly. That's really important. It's also very important for people to understand that these are not homegrown organizations. These aren't, homegrown domestic violent extremists, as our leaders at the federal and state level try to explain to us. These are organizations and networks that were created and are controlled and coordinated with hostile foreign powers, some of them nuclear powers like Pakistan, China, et al. And that's the important part, because this is a war that is being waged against the United States by hostile foreign powers, and they are waging total war, not just violence. As a matter of fact, the violence is a much smaller part of what they're doing. It is violence, yes. Conventional war, biological, nuclear, chemical warfare, yes. But it's information operations, counterintelligence, espionage, propaganda, and subversion of our key institutions, politically, religious, education, media, security apparatus, etc. And all of that is on the table for them, and anything they can think of. And meanwhile, our leaders, the ones who are actually still on our team, remain catastrophically clueless. And I would argue, in the case of the governors of Texas and Louisiana, for discussion, they have guilty knowledge, the legal term, which means they're criminally negligent for people that are dead in places like Louisiana and the various attacks we've had in Texas. And as the one last thing I'll say about it, since you were kind of focusing on Texas, my home state, Texas has had more jihadi attacks in that state than any other state. The hub for Hamas in the United States, the headquarters, is in Chicago. The number 2 hub, Dallas, Texas. The largest terrorism financing trial ever successfully prosecuted in American history, Northern District of Texas, Dallas. So the jihadi network here, especially in the key places, Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, but other places, El Paso, San Angelo, and smaller areas, they're there. And it's being totally unaddressed by DPS, by the Attorney General's office, and by the governor.
So this guy comes from Texas, goes to New Orleans, but I think it's important. What was, you briefly alluded to it, what was around this guy where he lived in Texas?
So, of course, now we're getting all this information about his travel patterns, but he should have been on the radar anyway. But, of course, our leaders would tell you, Islam's not the problem. Jihadis aren't. President Biden said it. The greatest threat is white supremacy, not Al-Qaeda, not ISIS, white supremacy. So this guy drives a pickup truck flying what people are calling the ISIS flag. It's actually it's the Shahada, Islam's statement of faith. So where he's from in Houston is a 3-minute walk from the Masjid Bilal. Masjid is another term for mosque, which is controlled by the Islamic Society of Greater Houston, which is a Hamas Muslim Brotherhood organization. And you're like, John, how do you know that? Well, because the ISGH, the Islamic Society of Greater Houston, and by the way, those initials are on the gate of the Masjid Bilal. Okay, so if anyone's like, well, what research did you do? Well, I looked at a photo of their gate. Okay, that's all you need to do for that. And I've already done research previously to know who the Islamic Society of Greater Houston is that promotes jihad and teaches children to kill non-Muslims for the sake of Allah. But anyway, let's not let those facts get in the way of a good story. But that property is a subsidiary of the Islamic Society of North America, which is one of the largest, it was until a few years ago, the largest Muslim Brotherhood organization in North America. And evidence in the largest terrorism financing trial in American history revealed that ISNA, Islamic Society of North America, is not only a Muslim Brotherhood organization, they directly fund the designated terrorist group Hamas. And that's who owns that mosque that is literally a 3-minute walk from where this cat lived. And then if you look in the immediate surrounding area, there are a number of other jihadi mosques. I think I did for both the attack site and where this guy lived, I think I did a 5-mile radius of the attack site, and I think a 5 to 10 mile radius of where this guy lived. I mean, there's just jihadi places littered, jihadi mosques and jihadi organizations around these places. So it just raises the question, why aren't those being investigated? So why isn't the state of Louisiana and their investigative organizations, why aren't they investigating that? Why isn't the Attorney General of Texas, DPS, investigating this? Because they know, and I know they know because I briefed them. So you got to ask what they're doing.
Well, we're going to get to what happened with the FBI because, again, this whole thing about white supremacists are the greatest threat in America. I mean, I would really like to see the actual number of real believing white supremacists in the United States of America, and I bet it's less than an actual 1,000, maybe 10,000 at the very most out of 300 million people. And yet they're saying this. How many jihadis are there in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll say what I say frequently. Name one national Islamic organization that's prominent, that's not hostile to the United States. It's not a jihadi org. Name one Islamic leader, even at the mid-level, a Muslim who's inside the government or advising the government that's not hostile. One Muslim state legislator or attorney general, hello, Arizona, that's not hostile. And it might be good at some point in this discussion to talk about splinter operations and how they layer how they actually do what they're doing so that you think you're looking at a conservative Republican Muslim, and what you're looking at is like level 5 of their strategic operation here in the United States. And I've got colleagues of mine, friends of mine, that have called and said, "Hey, I heard you make a comment about the Attorney General of Arizona is a Muslim, or he's really a kind of fallen away Muslim, just I'm like, oh, is he? That's good, because no, he's not. He's a jihadi. But you keep promoting that lie. This is where we are. We just don't want to face the reality of how bad the situation is and how badly we're getting our butts kicked.
Well, I think that's it. And, information operations to just terror attacks all inside the United States. But I want to shift gears quickly to Las Vegas. Within hours of this New Orleans terror attack, there's another explosion in front of Trump Tower in an Elon Musk rig. And it's a special forces operator, or so we're told. I know they've said we've matched DNA. But you got a guy who is, by all appearances, a Trump supporter, ASOT Tier 3 trained Jedburgh. I mean, something here does not make sense. What's your take on what happened there?
So when I analyze any of these things, I take all the noise, shut it off, and take all the garbage off the table and just let the facts sit there. And then that's what I look at. What are hard facts? Here are the hard facts. A jihadi, a known jihadi who identified himself as such by flying the flag overtly, conducts a jihadi attack on New Year's Day. I think it was approximately 3:15 a.m. Approximately 5 hours later, a Tesla, right, Cybertruck, whatever, Tesla Corporation, Cybertruck blows up in front of Trump Towers. So let's look at the facts on the table. Both those things happened hours apart on New Year's Day. Both involved vehicles. That's important because the latest encouragement for the individual jihad, which is the legal term, not lone wolf. No such thing in Islam as a lone wolf. There is such a thing in Islamic law as individual jihad. Both using vehicles, both done by U.S. Army personnel. Both use the same app to rent the vehicle, which goes to, again, modus operandi or tradecraft, possibly. Okay, I'm not, but those are facts on the table, right?
Right.
We don't have, at least I have not seen, maybe you have, a list of all the components that were in the, I'll call it the trunk space of that car that created this explosive device. And what I saw immediately, I'll use the word immediately, after this happened, was a lot of information pouring out to drive me, as I'm analyzing this, away from the fact that this was an actual attack.
Within minutes. Yeah.
That becomes part of, I need to analyze this this is the world I live in as I'm analyzing this. So why was that so quick to drop and propelled pretty quickly? So all those things are on the table. One of the other things I hear is, well, that couldn't be an attack. He's a special forces guy. He knows how to make a bomb. That's, from those big fireworks. Come on. Well, that's BS right there. That is a line of thinking that does not enter into the discussion. And here's why. And I'll go back to the Times Square bomber, Faisal Shahzad. May 1st, 2010. Is that about right? Something like that. Goes to Pakistan, is trained on how to build a bomb using components that you can get in the United States, that none of those components will raise a red flag with DHS, with ATF, with FBI. How about that? Because that's how good they are. And he does that. He builds a bomb. He's residing in Connecticut, just outside New York City. And they don't sell M80s there, which is going to be the initiator. So he gets M88s thinking that they're similar. So bad on him, because an M88 has as much gunpowder, again, like a firecracker. But a real M80 has significantly more, and it's meant to be the initiator. So that's why the M88s go off. It triggers some of the stuff, and it smokes in the car. And that's witnesses see that, call the police, and they're like, holy crap, this is a huge bomb. Well, the FBI built that bomb to test it, took it out to the desert in Arizona, blew it up, and said, if this had actually gone off, you would have had 1,000 people killed. Wow. So please don't tell me that propane tanks, gas canisters, and fireworks can't build a bomb big enough to blow people up, because the jihadis are using them. It's been done in the United States before. Now, we don't know all the components. I don't know all the components yet. I have not seen a list anywhere. I would love to know what kind of wiring was in there, what the initiators were, all of that. That's what I want to know, because that to me is an important part of this to know. But the fact that the media is describing it, including people I would call conservative media, are using the phrase, the Cybertruck caught fire.
Yeah.
Well, I've watched the video from two different angles. I don't know how many other videos are out there, multiple times, and that's an explosion. And I would argue that explosion may not have been as big as it was meant to be, but maybe it was. Maybe that's the extent of it. So if I were to analyze it, giving only the facts we have now, I would say those were coordinated attacks on New Year's Day. And we need to figure out those two individuals do not need to be connected. The two events need to be connected, because someone in the U.S. Was coordinating that. They always have an operational planner. There's legal permission to do that. I thought the fact that, all of the, again, the stuff that came out pretty quickly. Oh, he's a Trump supporter. He's patriotic, and then this line of talk that this special forces guy had to build a VBIED because the government was investigating him, wrongly investigating him, and he was going to use it to keep them away from him, and he was going to drive to the Mexican border. I mean, the level of bullcrap that's being spread about this. If you look, I was trained in similar ways as this guy. I know, worked with, in special operations, exactly what I'm talking about. Yep. If that guy wanted to go off the grid immediately, he could have done it. And he knows how to do it, and he knows how not to be tracked. So the idea he would build a bomb and it would accidentally go off, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about what is in store here prior to the inauguration and beyond, and also drones over Miami when we return.
Behind the power.
Vladimir Putin will remain in office until 2036.
Beneath the secrecy.
You'll be the most powerful man in the world.
Is the real story that defies reality. Putin is being called bold.
What's your strategy to bring them back to the Stone Age?
Chilling. You won't be able to look away.
How can his kingdom last?
Putin. Rated R. In select theaters January 10th.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's feeling like more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with our guest today, John Guandolo, former FBI agent and national security consultant, JohnGuandolo.com, talking about these two attacks before the break. New Orleans, Las Vegas. Are the events connected? Yes. What is going on in America right now? And can we expect more terror attacks in the United States? And what's the FBI doing?
Okay, so that's a wide variety of questions. Thank you for them. And I'm only laughing because the last question, what's the FBI doing? Probably still looking for Christian patriots to arrest.
All right.
First, let's go, since we're talking about this, these questions in light of the attacks in Las Vegas and Louisiana, New Orleans. The FBI shows up in New Orleans, and the assistant special agent in charge of the New Orleans field office, in an illiterate ramble, says this is not a terror attack, and literally FBI headquarters has to fire off a social media and a public statement saying, "Okay, we do believe it," and this is hours after the attack. So the flag was right there. The jihadi flag, the Shahada, I'll use for the sake of this discussion, the quote ISIS flag, but this is the Islamic Shahada, the statement of faith. So it's that flag is black. It's been called the black flag of jihad, but it is the statement of faith. And if you color that flag green, it's the national flag of Saudi Arabia, for instance.
That's right.
But putting that aside, what's the FBI doing? I have no idea what they're doing, but nothing professional. And I actually wanted to, if I may, I'd like to read something. So in my experience and people I am still connected with in the Bureau, the people I know are good people, rational people, good investigators. But I thought it would be good for your audience to hear this. So and referring to the attack in New Orleans, this is what a guy I've known for 20 years, who is a tremendous investigator and understands the things you and I are talking about.
Let's hear it.
This whole event, New Orleans, is a real life example of everything John Guandolo has taught about the bad guys and the good guys. The FBI has never been in a worse position than it is right now to deal with this. Even if those agents from the early 2000s didn't know Islamic doctrine, they were more hard-nosed investigators who could work cases. Now, we, the FBI, we are ignorant of the threat, and we are vastly more incompetent when it comes to basic investigative and intelligence work. That agent from the New Orleans News Conference is a perfect example. While wearing a behavioral analysis unit jacket, she was borderline illiterate. And that's true, I believe.
It's stunning. It's stunning.
But these are the leaders of your FBI. And I like dropping this big you-know-what into the punch bowl. Is it just a reminder, James Comey admitted he was a communist in a 2003 New York Magazine article. But that didn't stop Republicans from allowing him to become the Deputy Attorney General of the United States and later the FBI Director. So we want to talk about, and I think that's a great, the reason I use that example frequently is I think it tells you how corrupt and polluted the system is, that they would let an avowed communist, even though he said, I was, but he followed that comment with not really sure where I am now. Well, if you're a functional senator, your next question or your first question would be like, well, if you're not sure, we're not sure. So we're going to say no to you. If you're not sure, you're not still a communist or wherever you are, then no, thank you. And the fact you were a communist as an adult, no, thank you. Yeah. You don't deserve to be the FBI director. But that's not what they did. Nobody even asked him a question about it because that's how incompetent, nefarious, and treasonous our leaders are.
Well, I think that brings up a good question, too, that this level of incompetence, they don't understand the idea of splinter movements, as you brought up. I think it would be good for everybody listening and watching right now across Patriot Radio Land and Patriot TV to get an idea of what a splinter movement actually is.
So this is as important as anything, especially when we talk about the Islamic movement, but it applies because this is a technique, if you will. It's a way of operating strategically. So the goal is, imagine you're on a rifle range and I can get you to squeeze the trigger with your sights 3 feet to the right of the target. That you're not going to hit the target. Right. So 9/11 happens, and everyone in America is like, yeah, Al-Qaeda is bad. So all of a sudden, suit wearing Muslims come on TV and they condemn 9/11. They talk, this doesn't represent Islam. So they splinter themselves off from the jihadis that they support, because the same entities from the same U.S. Muslim Brotherhood movement that did that time and again on TV are the same ones, like the Islamic Center of San Diego, the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center, the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Muslim American Society. These are all people that supported, in the case of the Islamic Center of San Diego and Dar al-Hijra, directly supported 9/11 hijackers, for instance. Okay, but now we splinter them off. Now we're the good guys pointing to those bad guys, right? And as Americans and others, right, American citizens and some of the leaders, maybe 4 or 5 in America, come to realize that groups like the Council on American Islamic Relations and maybe the Islamic Society of North America aren't good guys. Well, then what happens? Well, in come the moderate Muslims, the Rahil Razas, Dr. Kanta Ahmed, Zuhdi Jasser, Reza Aslan, and these other jackass jihadis who come in to tell you, oh yeah, the Muslim Brotherhood is so bad, and now you're splintered off again. But my Islam that I grew up with was about love your neighbor, take care of each other. Doesn't matter what your religion is. These guys, the Muslim Brotherhood, they are bad. Yes, they are. And we should not support. As a matter of fact, I'm going to testify before Congress about how bad the Muslim Brotherhood is. And then you're going to like me. And so people like Zuhdi Jasser, the only people supporting him are Christians and Jews giving him money. You don't see the Muslim community support him because from their perspective, he's an apostate.
That's right.
But boy, the conservatives love to lift him up. He was just on the Mark Levin show. Right? Glenn Beck had him on his show so he could call me and a few of my colleagues out as being haters and bigots. See, splintered off, same movement, different shade of vanilla.
It's deception.
Now splintered off again. You've got Republican, conservative Muslims who sound like they're part of the Patriot movement. Low taxes. Stand up for the red, white, and blue. Fight terrorism. We got to deal with these radicals. And now you got, they're in state legislators now. Now they've been made state and federal judges, right?
Yep.
Attorney General of Arizona, like to drop that bomb into the punch bowl again. So you've got them out there, and that's the next splinter. And they're going to keep doing it. And you know what? So long as we're using terms like violent extremists, we're not using the right terms like jihadi and communists. And so long as we're worried about policies like the southern border and Bitcoin and, pick any other policy, and we're not focused on identifying the enemy and vanquishing them, we will lose this war.
And this is a shared tactic with the communists. I mean, Alexander Shelpin, who was the head of the KGB, in 1959 at a conference specifically said that they were going to do a fake split. And one of the people in the audience said, which country do you propose? And he said, China. 1 year before, 1960, when there was the supposed Sino-Soviet split. So this is something that is shared in the red-green axis, deception. Let's go to probably the most important part of this show, and that is, what should Trump be doing here? We got a couple minutes left. What should he be doing to address the true threats to the United States of America?
Well, first I would say is train all the people around him to what they actually are. When you got J.D. Vance on Joe Rogan say, of course there's this Islam, which of course is cool, and then the Islamists, which they're the bad guys. That shows you either he's dumb, and he doesn't appear to be dumb, or he's lying, or he's just grossly ignorant. But either way, you got people like Rick Grinnell, who says things like these are radical. The radicals, like the radical guy who attacked Louisiana. And you got guys like Seb Gorka saying 99.9% of Muslims don't support Al-Qaeda. Factually not true. Absolutely not true. So these are the people Trump has around him. So you got to at some point say, maybe he doesn't know what he's doing. So what would I do if I had 5 minutes with him? First of all, everyone in any position of authority and 3 levels down needs to get trained to know who the actual bad guys are.
Yep.
So let's start with that. When we're doing this, Tom Homan, American hero, when he's deporting all these illegals, I'd strip the citizenship of all the jihadi leaders and send them packing. And if they were born here, well, then maybe we'll just have to put you in prison for conspiring to overthrow the United States, for material support of terrorism, and a whole bunch of other charges that you could legally do. So that's but you have to know the enemy. You have to focus on the enemy and vanquish the enemy. Shut down all the prominent Islamic organizations. You can do it lawfully. You can strip them of their 501c3 status. You can charge them with money laundering, material support of terrorism. And the people who are in government, who've sworn an oath, I'd say charges of treason would be good, but certainly espionage, counterintelligence charges, again, material support for terrorism. You've got to destroy the network. And this is true of the communist network as well. And I think you need to go after, he said, Mrs. Clinton should be in jail, but then he never put her in jail. Numerous federal charges. Mr. Obama, Mr. Biden, John Brennan, John Podesta, Mrs. Clinton, Victoria Nuland. My God, the list goes on of people that could be charged, not just with treason, but with actual other charges under the Espionage Act, under money laundering. My God, the charges are endless. But you can't do that when you have a DOJ that's in the control of these hostile movements. So what are you going to do? I think you have to have military tribunals, military commissions to actually do this, because you have to recognize you're actually in a war with hostile foreign powers that are using organizations in the United States to wage that war. And then it totally changes what you got to do. And I don't know that Mr. Trump has the stomach for what needs to be done, nor has enough people around him that can do what needs to be done. I honestly have only seen a couple people in his cabinet positions that I think have the will and the strength of stomach to do what needs to be done.
Long way to go to address the real threats to this country. John Guandolo, thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. Blessings to you. Keep up the fight.
Thank you. God bless you and your staff too.
JohnGuandolo.com. So what can you do with all of these threats that really are manifesting locally, the communist networks and the jihadi networks? The biggest thing that you can do is get educated. Go to JohnGuandolo.com. And this stuff is out there. People have been talking about this for years, but it seems like nobody's listening. Let's understand the real threat here, and that there may be bigger connections. Well, at least we're being told by the government and by the media. And those connections are to foreign powers who seek our destruction. And it is in our interest, both at the local and the state and the national level, to push back these communist and jihadi networks to restore our republic. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me today on Patriot Radio. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.